Uh, and welcome back for our second science lesson this week. So we're going to continue to think about the properties of materials and look at the different materials and look at what properties they might have. And just continuing to think about those things. Hopefully you've got a list now of things that you found around the house that are different materials. And then we can think about the reasons why some of those materials might have been used for those particular things. So, properties and their materials. So again, let's think about what we might need to think about in today's lesson and think about where we're going with this. Firstly, we need to know what a property is. What is a property of something? Secondly, we're going to look at needing to describe the properties of this different material. So linking those properties and the names of those properties to different materials and which ones have what property. And finally, we're going to explain why certain materials might be suited for particular purposes. Which of those properties that they have mean that they're good at doing the job they are currently doing. So, first off, we need to think about what materials we're talking about in last lesson. So what materials were we talking about in last lesson? We might have wood, glass, rubber, plastic, metal, and clay. Let's think of what properties does each of these materials have. So let's think about this as we go down. What sort of things might we have seen that were made out of wood? Now, if we have a look around, you might find furniture was made out of wood, tables and chairs. There might also be some tables and chairs made out of plastic or metal. Do we normally have a metal top to our table? Have you ever seen a glass top to a table? When might that be a good thing? What are these good at? What is a property? A property is a thing that we can say something has. So, for example, how hard something is would be a property. Is something hard or soft? Now, wood, generally speaking, I think we would assume is hard. Glass, what would we say that is? Is it hard or soft? Does it have a give if we push on it or not? Rubber, an interesting one. Did anyone find any rubber around the house? Sometimes rubber is used for the soles of our shoes because it's slightly soft, has a bit of a give. The rubber you actually use is rubber, obviously, because that's what its name is. Plastic is used all over the place, and you can find so many examples of it. More than likely, the laptop you're working on is covered in plastic. The screen is not actually glass, it's a plastic. If you look at your TVs, the majority of them don't have glass screens because that's too heavy. So what is the properties therefore of plastic? Is that it's easy to form. You can see it in so many different shapes. Is it relatively light compared to other things? Is it cheaper to make, maybe? Is it durable? Does it wear easily or does it break down easily? If you put pressure through it, does it snap? Is it brittle? How about metal? We're thinking about metal as this thing shiny, like my ring. Yes, it's a type of metal. This is tungsten carbonate. But that isn't the only metal, is it? You'll find metals which are not the same color. Copper, bronze, for example. And some of them aren't shiny at all. So is that a property? Probably not. What might be a property is how durable metal is. It doesn't wear away as easily. How hard is it? Is it brittle? Does it snap easily? Or does it hold its shape and is quite firm and is strong? Does it let water through? Is it porous? If I have a sheet of metal and I pour water into it, does the water seep through the metal or does it stay where it is? And I don't mean running off the edges, I mean actually going through the material. And that's what porous is. And that's a property. That's how much water it lets through. Is it transparent, opaque, or translucent? We'll go into what those are, but that's to do with whether or not you can see through them. How about clay? Where might you find clay in your house? And more than likely, you'll find it somewhere in the kitchen, or you might eat off of it. Because clay is used for things like mugs and plates. And one of the things, for some reason, we use it for is quite brittle, isn't it? It can't take a lot of pressure. If it hits something, it's quite likely to chip or smash or break. So why do we use it? Why is it that we use it for that? Is it just because it's easy to form, easy to decorate? Because it looks good, has a heavy weight to it? It's an interesting one to think on. So, your task. I want you to choose 6 materials from around the house. And then I want you to put them into a table like this. And I want you to think about the different properties they might have. So for here, we have a couple of properties. We have on this side hand here, the materials we're going to choose. And of course, you can choose more materials if you like, but you might just use ones that we've spoken about. And then we've got whether they're hard or soft. And normally this is defined by the fact of if you push against them, does it give or does it keep its form? If it keeps its form, it's probably hard. If it has give to it, if you're able to push it in, if you think about a sponge and you push against the sponge, quite often you can push it in, so it's soft. Smooth or rough. If you touch the top and run your fingers across the top of it, is that material smooth to the touch or is it rough to the touch? What difference does that make? Do we know something about the forces involved? What's the difference between a smooth surface and a rough surface? When might you want a surface to be smooth or a surface to be rough? Is there a use for that? And then we have the last 3, opaque, translucent, and transparent. And these are to do with whether you can see through the material or not. Opaque meaning that you can't, transparent meaning that you can, and translucent being that you can almost see through it, but you can't make out any detail. So translucent, a good one for translucent is tracing paper. You can hold up tracing paper, you can see that there is light on the other side and the rough ideas of shape on the other side, but you can't see clarity through it. Transparent is obviously what we make our windows out of because we want to be able to see outside. So a glass normally would be transparent, we can see through it. Whereas other materials, such as brick, which the walls are made of, or wood, tend to be opaque. We can't see through it. Our vision stops when it meets it. Take time, go round, think about this. And the best way to do this is to find that material and try it out. Do a small test yourself. See what you think. I also want you to think about, is that always the case with all of them? So say, for example, I'm looking at materials and I'm going to look at plastic, okay? And I'm going to say whether the plastic is hard or soft. And I go and I find the plastic that my laptop is made of. It's pretty hard. It doesn't give when I push against it, keeps its form, so it can be hard. Are there times when plastic can be soft? The same for smooth and rough, opaque, translucent, and transparent. Plastic is an odd one. A good example is a milk bottle, the plastic type, obviously. Is that opaque, or can you see through it? And what I mean by can you see through it, can you see completely through it, or just partially through it? So when you're thinking about the material, you might want to be more particular about what version of that material you're looking at. So you might say plastic milk bottle, and then do its properties in relation to that. And then find a different plastic and do another one. Because you might get different answers depending on when it's used. And there might be some that you look at that are very consistent. No matter what different versions of metal you might find, maybe always metal is opaque. You can never see through it. Maybe all metals that you find are hard or soft. Have a look. Go and find it. See what you can do. So, what if? Why is this helmet not made of metal? Why would we not wear a helmet made of metal on our heads? Why do we not build houses out of cloth? Think about it. Build a house. Think about what was the problem if I built a house out of cloth? Where would the problems be? These are questions I just want you to think about. Write down your an answer that you think it might be, and we'll talk about them in our live session. What are road cones made out of rubber rather than plastic? Why isn't the bottom of this jackhammer made out of glass? What would happen if it was? Would it do its job that it was meant to do? Lastly, this water pipe is made out of metal. What would happen if it was made out of cardboard? You think about these questions and try and have an answer for the reason why or what properties they possess that the other doesn't, and why they're more suited to the job than you might think. We'll see you in the next lesson. Goodbye.